let's get started with the show. I'm going to be hanging some poster boards up now, and in doing this, I'm just going to be reading from the poster boards, and I'm just going to let you, kind of read along with me. I may freeze frame this here so that you guys can read it on your own after I've given you the breakdown, because I want you to have these notes as well, and to be able to extrapolate the information from it, the same information that I have. So, yeah. All right. Let's get started with the first one. Here we go. And basically, God is a living, breathing, growing organism. God is the living universe. The living universe is a living structural building block that belongs to an even greater structural building block within the context of an eternal body. The universe is also made up of living structural building blocks: galaxy clusters, galaxies, solar systems, stars, planets, nebulae, animals, plants, marine life, insects, germs, microbes, cells, DNA, atom, molecules, protons, neutrons, particles, waves, energy, etc. are all living structural building blocks which collectivize and together form the body of our universe. The body of our universe. Our universe is our God. We are structural building blocks that belong to the body of God. Our bodies are also made up of living structural building blocks. We're made in the universe's image. Our cells, glands, organs, atoms, etc. are all living organisms. We are made in the universe's God's image. God is not some external force that governs over us. We belong to the body of God. We, in fact, represent the structural building blocks for his body, by proxy the body of this planet as it belongs to the solar system, and etc. Okay, and we're going to scroll down here a little bit because I don't know if you could still see that, but let's see if we can pick up where we were. Pardon me, get a little bit of mucus there. Okay, structural building blocks belong to orders called scaled planes of existence. Scaled planes of existence manifest as an infinite spectrum of densities, which we refer to as states of matter. States of matter range from seemingly empty space all the way to the most intense forms of energy imaginable. Now, we've always been taught that there were 3 states of matter, and I believe that they've recently added a 4th, plasma. But they're actually, all states of matter are an infinite spectrum. It's not just solid, liquid, and gas. Let me see, it goes from almost empty space to waves, sound, energy, and it's just a full spectrum, and I'll break that down for you in a little bit more. But let's continue to move forward just for time. All things in eternity are literally represent bodies inside of bodies inside of bodies inside of bodies, infinity. All things in eternity can be traced back to a harmonic overtone produced by the combination of 2 eternal frequencies. These frequencies are called love and fear. These frequencies exist outside of all things, including time, space, and even the body of our God, even outside of our universe. And I'm going to scroll down just a little bit more. Okay, you saw that. Very good. And we're going to continue moving forward. We're going to read down here, and it says, all things in existence have 2 forms, physical and intellectual. Physical expressions manifest as matter or material, and intellectual expressions manifest as living structural blueprints for matter, states of matter, organisms, and physical forms. These structural blueprints guide, shape, and form energy into matter. And just like their physical counterparts, these blueprints manifest as bodies inside of bodies inside of bodies infinitely. All things in existence can be described as composite waveforms that are made up of, but that also belong to, scaled expressions of composite waveforms. All things, let me see, and I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. Here we go. All things are rooted in and governed by sound. When sound collectivizes and concentrates, it creates a spectrum of densities that manifest as all things ranging from what we interpret as sound to energy, structural building blocks, and matter. Eternity represents different concentrations or scaled planes of existence of sound. everything can be traced back to sound. And, you know, modern science has said something that is similar to this. They're finally realizing this.
All right.
Love and fear are not emotions. Love and fear are eternal frequencies. Both literally and allegorically, love represents or is equal to bonding. And fear represents or is equal to distance, spacing, and separation. All of eternity is a composite wave made up of different concentrations, combinations, and infinitely layered expressions of these two frequencies. Intellectually, these frequencies register in the human psyche as both emotions, which can also be termed as the intuitive urges to bond with or separate from external properties, and they also manifest as the root expressions of every communicative construct, the concepts/terms yes and no. Yes is equal to bonding, as in, yes, I am bonding with this object, concept, principle, or idea, and no is equal to distance, separation, as in, no, I repel, wish to put distance between myself and a given object, concept, principle, idea, or value. I'm going to scroll down here so that you can see this as well. I want you to see my notes. Physically, love and fear manifest as living energy composites, structural building blocks, which we refer to as organisms or life forms. Okay? And I'm going to switch this out right here. Come on. The frequencies the frequency of love has the numeric value of 7, and I'm going to explain this in a little bit. This is on the next couple of note cards, or poster board cards, but the number 7 holds or signifies the universal eternal value or theme of composition. There are 7 days in a week, 7 sensory faculties, and those are sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell, intuition, and kinesthesia. These are senses because they leave mental imprints that register in the form of thoughts or information that is imprinted onto the mind. There are 7 notes in the scale, and we're going to get to that in a little bit too. But there are 7 faculties of intelligence, and this is very important. It's necessity, balance, progress, expansion, awareness, will, and consciousness. And there are countless other examples of 7 being the number of composition and completion. Many faith systems believe the number 7 is a holy number and that it signifies completion of a cycle. This is also correct. I personally wouldn't call it holy. From what I've come to understand and what God has shown me, there's really no such thing as holiness or any of this other craziness, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. Let me see. The frequency of fear holds the numeric value of 6. Again, fear represents or is equal to distance or separation. So love is equal to 7, fear is equal to 6. Let me see. The counting system for all distance-related intervals between properties that occupy or represent natural spatial values should be divisible by or rooted by the values of the numbers 5, 6, 8, 9, or 13. 6 is the most consistent unit of spacing, and units that are or distances that are divisible evenly by the number 6 is the most consistent form of spacing in the entire universe. So we're going to get to that in a little bit. But this is demonstrated by music, as are all things, when the natural value of A is changed from 440 hertz back to 432 hertz. And this has been a popular thing as of recently. A lot of people are into the 432 hertz. This is actually correct, and I'm going to explain that to you here in just a little bit. But most intervals between notes have hertz counts that are divisible by the numbers 5 and 6. The intervals surrounding C are exempt from this, as they are divisible by 8 and 13. 9 is also in there too, but I'm going to give you a breakdown of that in a little bit. The reason why we focus on the numbers 5 and 6 is because, again, 6 is for spacing. 5 represents the value of balanced. 5 signifies or represents fixed or balance within a given context, cycle, or range of motion. Okay, and hopefully you guys can see that there. You're going to have to forgive my penmanship. I wasn't doing this trying to be pretty. My job is to inform you, not be an artist in this particular capacity. Yeah, we need to make a quick pause for editing, but we are back. So we're going to pick up where we left off, and we're going to start again with the poster board that is diagramming the 7 faculties of intelligence. So let's go ahead and get to that. As I had mentioned before, see if I can get this shot real quick. As I mentioned before, everything in the universe has 2 expressions. It has the physical expression, and then it has the intellectual expression that manifests as a map of sorts. And I'm going to break down some of the maps for you right now, or at least some of the decoder keys that are going to help you put the maps together for yourselves. We're going to start with the most basic mapping system for the entire universe, right? And those are numbers. Numbers have intellectual themes. They have intellectual values. So you see there are 7 notes in the scale, right? Well, the values 1 through 7, all values between 1 through 7 have intellectual themes that reverberate throughout all of eternity. They're decoder keys, right? And these themes, they house certain concepts together. And when these values collectivize, they create the anatomical composite of intelligence. Intelligence is a living, breathing, growing organism just like you. Intelligence is the map that pretty much that gives you your physical form, and I'm going to explain that to you in just a little bit. But let me see. All these numbers have themes that house universal principles and concepts. Intelligence is in this order. It's progress, expansion, necessity, will, balance, awareness, and consciousness. All of these things are the physical composite, or what we would call the physical composite of intelligence. But again, these things, these facets, these faculties of intelligence, they house certain concepts. So let's start with progress. Progress houses the concept of movement, motion, etc. All things begin with movement and motion, and anything that is similar to, or that belongs with, or that is almost synonymous with progress belongs to the house of 1. Okay? The house of 2 is expansion. Expansion is growth. It's exponential progress, moving in all directions. It's replication, etc. You'll notice that over here to the side, and I'm going to make sure that I have this in the shot here. Let's see if we can move this a little bit closer so I can get this for you here. Yeah, hopefully that's a little bit better. You'll notice over here off to the side I have evolution right here that has an arrow pointing off to the side of it from expansion. But we have progress, expansion. We're going to move down to necessity. Necessity is hunger. It's the requirement of or for balance and resolve. Basically, necessity and expansion create what most people will refer to as evolution. We have will, which comes after necessity, and will is drive, pursuit, perseverance. These are all themes that are housed under, the concept of will. It's the magnetic intermediary between necessity and balance. And basically all of these are intermediaries between each other, and I'll explain that to you in a second. But it's determination, it's attraction, etc. All these things are part of will. Basically after will drive comes balance. Balance is harmony, peace, order, fixed states, center, etc. And I'm going to make sure that I adjust the camera right here so that we still can see, or better yet, we're still, we can catch all of this. That's what we want. Alright, basically, so let's continue to move forward. There's balance, peace, harmony, and again, remember, these numbers, these values belong to these numbers. 5 is balance, 6 is equal to awareness. Awareness is the capacity to receive and or process energy and or information. And it's also synonymous with fear. That's temporal and spatial relevance. And we'll go ahead and get into that in a little bit more. But then 7 is consciousness. Consciousness, as I explained before, is a cycle of completion. It's also equal to active thought. It's equal to decision-making ability, the ability to oscillate between the receptiveness for the frequencies of love and fear. That's decision-making ability, and completion. So these are the basic maps of the universe. These are the things that all things are to some extent based on, and then as we continue to go up in the numeric sequence, there are other values that are attached to different numbers, but they all can still to some degree be traced back to these intellectual maps right here. You need to understand that. Okay, so basically everything that I just explained to you right now about the 7 values, when you map them out, they create this. They create a body. Intelligence has an anatomy. And we're going to view it down here. Progress and expansion manifests as the legs that move eternity forward. There's expansion and progress. Necessity and balance are the hands that mold eternity, that mold the universe, that mold what some people call evolution, what others call creation. What is needed and the will to bring what is needed about are the hands that form all of existence. Balance is equal to the central body mass. Without a central body mass, none of these concepts can be attached to anything. Okay? And then we have the head, which is awareness. It's symbolized by awareness. And what you're going to notice is inside this head there's a triangle and there's an eye. Now, there's some secret order or society or whatever they call themselves, I really don't care, that uses this particular image. And we're going to kind of zoom in on the upper left-hand side. I'm going to bring this a little bit closer so you can see it. Yeah, hopefully you can see that there. But there is a group that uses the triangle with the eye in the center, and I don't know what they think it means, but the entity or the group that handed them this is what it really means. See, awareness is the head, and again, there's the frequencies of love and fear. When you reach a certain level of awareness, you have the ability to oscillate between the frequencies of love and fear, and that is consciousness. Consciousness is the ability to oscillate between the frequencies of bonding and separation, between yes and no. Awareness, love, fear creates sight, or a sight that is not confined to a body, which symbolizes the external value of perspective. That is where this symbol comes from. This symbol represents consciousness. So again, progress, expansion or legs, necessity, balance or arms. Balance is necessity and will or arms. Balance is the central body mass, awareness is the head, consciousness is the eye of all, or the ability to oscillate between bonding and separation. And we're going to go ahead and move forward to the next concept here. Okay, so we're back. We're going to talk about relevant number groups. Again, everything in the universe can be traced back to numbers, and different numbers house universal themes. I gave you the list of 1 through 7, and what's really cool about understanding this concept is that it allows us to trace all conversations back to values that can be interpreted musically. So we are intended to actually communicate with tones and sounds, and different combinations of these sounds create different meanings, and that's a whole different, you know, story, and I don't have time to get into all that right now, but I'm just going to give you the breakdown. We have relevant number groups. We start off with prime numbers. There was a doctor by the name of Stanislaw Ulam who came up with something called the prime number rows, or the prime numeric rows, and it was basically a spiral pattern that he had noticed when he mapped out, you know, certain numbers that formed in the prime numbers, but that isn't actually the true sequence of prime numbers. Prime numbers actually map out the universal genetic sequence, and I'm going to show that to you in just a little bit. But let's go down the rest of the relevant number groups. We have square root numbers. We can actually term square root numbers anomalous numbers, and I'll explain that to you in a little bit. But we have series of 5 numbers, that's 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, etc. We have series of 7, that's 7, the square root of 7, and then they have 777, and 7,777, and so on, and then different square roots and multiples of 7, which we'll get into at a later point in time. But then again, we have we finally come to multiples of 6, 8, 9, and 13, which happen from the other, which carry over from the other poster board that I shared with you. And basically, together, these values, or these numbers, these number groups, they form and map out the universal genetic sequence. And again, as you'll see down here at the bottom, everything in existence has both physical and intellectual expressions, which manifest as composite energy forms that are made up of living structural building blocks. Okay? So, and a little bit earlier I was talking to you about music, and we were talking about the values of, you know, different notes when we move we're talking about the value of spacing, and when you move the Hertz value of A back to 432, if I can get these tags to work with me. Come on, guys. On the same team. Are we? Or do you work for the devil? Probably work for the devil. Anywho, let's go ahead and get back to this. Let's scoot this in just a little closer here. And you'll see I have this mapped out over here. What we have is a list of notes and the solfeggio scale right here. Then we have the Hertz values when we moved A back to 432 Hertz, and then we have the minus. So minus is the value, the numeric value that represents the distance between the notes. Literally, understanding the universe is literally reading between the lines, and I'll explain that to you in a little bit. So here we are. B is equal to T, which has 486 Hertz. T on the solfeggio scale, 486 Hertz, and A is equal to La, which has 432 Hertz. Well, if you subtract 486, if you subtract 432 from 486, you have a value of 54. 54 is divisible by 2, 3, 6, and 9. Because 5 is the value of balance, we count 5 and up. Okay, and let me see if I can explain that to you a little bit more succinctly. Because 5 equals the value of balance, then we start counting which numbers are relevant from the denominators over here at 5 and move forward. This was explained to me. I'll understand how to explain it to you in English better, I'm sure, in a short period of time, but this is just how it's explained to me, so you just have to kind of walk with me as I'm walking and figuring it out myself. 54. 54 is divisible by 2, 3, 6, and 9. The reason why you see a 26 here is because the octave above C down here is 512 hertz. There's 26, the value of 26 that separates 486 from 512, which means that it's divisible by 2 and 13. So we have the relevant numbers of 13. We have 6 circled here. 9 is also a relevant number, as is 8 over here, as is 8 and 5. So minus the space in between here, and you're going to see this map for yourself, so you're going to be able to do the math yourself, but the interval spacing between here is shown here, and here, and these are the denominators, the values that they can be divisible by. The relevant numbers begin at 5 and they move up to 13. So you have 13, 6, 9, 6, 8, 5, 8, 5, 6, 9, and 8. Okay? 8 occurs 3 times, 6 occurs 3 times, 5 occurs twice, 13 occurs once. And basically, again, I want you to pay attention to this, because when you map this out, it tells you, it gives you basically the map of the universal genetic code. And let me break that down for you right now. And this is where it gets good, y'all. This is where it gets fun. Alright. Wonder how long this video is going to ultimately end up being. Now I'm interested to know. Hopefully editing will help save a decent amount of this. But alright, so look at it like this. We start off with 7. 7 is the number of completion. And again, as I showed you a little bit earlier on in the video, as I showed you a little bit earlier on in the video, I was instructed on January 29th, or around that time, that to not repeat the numeric value at that the numeric value needed to be repeated at 7, not 10. At first I thought that 8, 9, and 0 were unnecessary, but that isn't what God was showing me. And again, I told you that I was going to demonstrate for you that I was being instructed. He went ahead and gave me the clear understanding of it. Take all the numbers, line them up to 7, and then put them into columns, starting at 7. And what ends up happening is this numeric pattern emerges. This is the true pattern of prime numbers. They spell out the genetic code. 7 across, 6 down. And here's what happens. 5 to 11 is a value of 6, plus 6 is 17, plus 6 is 23, plus 6 is 29. 7 plus 6 is 13, 19. This is your genetic code. And I told you about anomalous numbers. The reason why they're anomalous numbers is because just like they fall within the prime numeric sequence, but they aren't necessarily part of the sequence. So 2 and 3 are prime numbers, but they're not part of this pattern. So they're anomalous numbers, just like the number 49. Well, we know 49 is divisible by 7, but it still falls within the prime numeric sequence, as well as 77. So multiples of 7, and then the certain multiples of 7. 7 times 7, and then 7 times 11, and 777, and so on and so forth. We have the series of 5. Remember I told you 5 equals balance. Well, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. And this grid is the most consistent grid that occurs in all of this series, because 5, again, is for stabilization, is for fixed values, for balance. 25 and 49 are square root numbers, and all square root numbers have some sort of value within the sequence, but the main numbers that we need to focus on, at least to 112, which I made all of these columns, is 25 and 49. They're anomalous numbers because they are not prime numbers, but they fall within the prime number sequence, which create the basically create the genetic code, or at least the map for the genetic code. Then you have your series of 8 numbers. We're going to scroll down here a little bit. You have your series of 8 numbers. Your series of 8 numbers work backwards, but they go down in the exact same pattern as at the exact same angle, better yet, as the prime numeric sequence, but 8 has a different value. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think I understand it to be communication. It hasn't been made clear to me 100% yet whether or not it's communication, but I believe that that's what it's supposed to be. So I'm going to keep meditating. God, He always breaks it down for me, ultimately, as He did with this. So, you know. Then you have your series of 13. The reason why these numbers are significant because these are the only numbers that create descending patterns going down in a spiral sequence, which actually create the genetic code. Okay, so let's look at this over here. You have your 8s coming down here, then you have 13 coming down at a very sharp angle right over here, and again, I don't know, it hasn't been explained to me exactly what 13 represents. If I do understand it correctly, it has to do with like the turning of a new, it's like the new cycle of revolution or something like that. Like there are 13 28-day lunar cycles in a year. That's the way that it's supposed to be broken down. So basically 13 has something to do with new cycle of revolution for a different scale plane of existence, and that's what I understand it to be so far. I'll get a little bit more in depth in that. The theme of 6, let's come over here a little bit. The theme of 6, now this is really cool because you see the theme of 6. I explained this to you over here a little bit, but 6 is for spacing. So look at this. The whole value, multiples of 6, they all represent spacing values. Multiples of 6 are space, space, space. But then again, in between the prime numeric sequence over here, you'll see 7 to 13, the value, the spacing is 6. Again, 6 is the most consistent form of spacing between natural bodies in the entire universe. And down here you'll see the series of 9. Series of 9 has a descending pattern too. It hasn't been explained to me exactly what 9 is yet, but all of these things are going to come within a very short period of time, but or at least the values that they're supposed to represent will be shown to me in a very short period of time. But if we take all of these things and we put them together, we get this. We get what is called let's get this right here. Ladies and gentlemen, you have your universal genetic code. And this is the decoder key right over here. And you can pause this at any given time. It gives you the key for the breakdown. And this is what it looks like mapped out. I didn't add the values of 9 in there, but you are obviously going to work this out for yourself, and you're going to, add that in when you get a chance to. But this basically spells out your universal genetic sequence, right? Okay, and we're going to pause right. I'm I'm reading here. Again, all things in existence are living structural building blocks, organisms that belong to and form and collectivize to form greater organisms, structural building blocks. Humans, along with other animals, insects, and other life forms, are structural building blocks for the body of this planet. Within the context of the planetary body, we serve the function / operate in the capacity of neurons. Humans are nerve cells. Together, along with a few other species, we form the planet's central nervous system. The other species being like dolphins and things of that nature, like, other higher creatures that have higher life forms. Right now, the body of this planet is under attack by a parasite. A parasite is an organism that survives by attaching itself to another life form, and then it feeds itself by exploiting the resources, that is the energy, the nutrients or life force of the host organism. This parasite is what most faith systems refer to as, ironically and unwittingly, both devil and God. Most of you don't know that most organized religions belong to the devil. All of the popular faith systems represent and worship what you would refer to as the devil. This parasite is made up of structural building blocks that also manifest within the context of the body of this planet as organisms that resemble human beings. Okay? These organisms resemble human beings. These organisms have parasitically exploited the organisms of this planet under the guise of institutions like slavery, monarchy, religion, economy, education, politics, ownership, law, the illusion of civility. And the purpose of these institutions is to externalize and regulate the value of human life so that it can be manipulated, exploited, and parasitically fed off of. Okay? These creatures are not evil. In fact, they do not recognize what they are or what value they represent within the context of the body of this planet. They actually believe themselves to be advanced beyond us, or what they would refer to as enlightened. Upon its arrival to this planet, this parasite, devil, and its structural building blocks infected the human race, and I guess this planet's central nervous system with a virus called ego. As a matter of fact, and this is just a side note, as a matter of fact, and let me scroll down here and make sure that you can keep up with what I'm saying. As a matter of fact, most viruses on this planet can be traced back to this devil parasite group. They create parasites, and they create viruses, and they are the source of all illnesses. It is their way. Ego, let me see, a virus is a collective of parasites that operate on a smaller or lower scale plane of existence. It's a massive group or collective of parasites. Ego is responsible for the breakdown, disruption of the homocellular network. I don't really need to explain any further than that. Individually, ego manifests within each of us as both a parasite and also as an artificial intellectual construct that we refer to as perception. The purpose of, I've already come. And basically, give you the breakdown. I'm going to go ahead and read down this script so that you can catch back up with where we were. Okay, so basically, the ego is a parasite that is attached to the human brain. The ego does not feed on vitamins, nutrients, or minerals. The ego parasite actually feeds on chemicals that the mind and body produce. And these chemicals, you're very familiar with them. These are, the ego feeds on oxytocin, vasopressin, adrenaline, serotonin, insulin. Very important. Dopamine and other chemicals that are produced naturally by the perception and intellectual expression of the ego parasite. The ego's mind, basic problem-solving ability. If man is mind and body, then the ego is parasite and perception. Perception now acts in place of the authentic human consciousness. The ego uses perception to steer us into indulging in substances and behaviors that will and can force the body and mind to produce chemicals for the parasite to feed on. This transaction is the basis for the phenomenon that we refer to as addiction.
Basically, perception manifests in each of us as an intellectually hollow construct which processes information exclusively through surface assessments of value. Perception is illusion, opinion, approximation, assumption, emotional fear, intellectual teetering, and I'll explain that concept a little bit later, projection, confusion, want, independence, entitlement, memory, and the list goes on. Perception is all of these things. They are not real. They are the faculty of the intellectual. They represent the intellectual faculty of the ego parasite. If humans are or represent neurons, then it means that the ego virus is a neurotoxin to this planet. And I'm going to scroll down here because what I'm doing is probably out of view for you right now. Alright, let me see. Okay, so if humans are or represent neurons, then it means that the ego virus is a neurotoxin to this planet. This virus self-perpetuates through a process that modern science refers to as the lysogenic cycle. The ego parasite, let's pause for that. Let's pause on that for 1 second. The ego parasite replicates through the lysogenic process. So if we're cells, structural building blocks, then it replicates in us so every person who's born is automatically born with an ego parasite attached to their brain. Okay? The ego parasite relegates up to 95% of brain function. And here's the kicker. The more we process information through the perception is the stronger that the ego parasite becomes and the dumber we get. And the aforementioned institutions of thought that we went over, the aforementioned institutions of thought being slavery, monarchy, religion, economy, education, politics, ownership, law, these are all institutions of thought that serve the present world order, and all of these are designed specifically for the purpose of appealing to the perception. So basically, in summation, here I'm going to turn the camera back towards me, and we're going to, let's see. You have to look at my ugly mug again. That's alright. Let's see if we can get some light here. This is not a flattering light for me. I need the halo light like Joan Rivers. I'm just messing around. But truth of the matter is, this is basically just a rundown of some of the things that God has shown me. There are a lot of people who claim to be what I have been informed that I am. And I'm not going to play into anyone's perception of what I'm supposed to be, and I'm not going to let the fallacies of myth, folklore, and history steer me into trying to take on the responsibility that comes along with their interpretation of what I am. Okay? I'm not interested in any of that. I'm not interested in any titles. I'm not interested in anything other than sharing what I've been instructed to share. And that's it. There's a lot more than this. And hopefully in the editing process I can trim out a lot of the fat so that you all can get the gist, the bulk, the important pieces of this whole presentation. Again, this comes from a real place. This isn't rehearsed. I haven't thought this through and figured out. I'm not trying to move you with a stirring performance. I'm a man. I bleed. I do everything that a man does. I'm not perfect. I don't understand why I am this person, or why I understand the things, or why I can even see the universal maps the way that I do. I can't explain that to you, but You know, God obviously has a reason for doing this, and this is just scratching the surface of what you need to know. I hope that this information finds you well. I hope that you can get past whatever disappointments you may feel. For a good majority of the world, I'm not your race. I'm not from your religious order. I'm not from your belief system. I have nothing to do with you. I have nothing to do with your concept of personal importance. And that's the beauty of it. I never have had anything to do with anyone's concept of personal importance, not even my own. I'm just a person who's been afforded a physical perspective that allows him to see relevance, spatial relevance between physical objects and how they correlate with blueprints that God uses to structure all of existence. So I hope this finds you well.